All right, so in our final lecture, let's talk a little bit about what Captain America as a symbol means. What is it that he's supposed to symbolize? And to do that, we're going to have to get into a little bit of geopolitics. So the most commonly accepted geograph or inscription of the Earth's surface is the so-called international system, which is kind of portrayed by the background image on the slide here. The international system, in which the land masses and in some case ocean spaces of the world are divided into discrete and mutually exclusive territories. Each is conceived of as fundamentally independent in terms of both political dominion and culture. The idea of the nation state lives on in the popular consciousness, largely through processes that reinstitutionalize these boundaries and identities over and over time. People around the globe come to feel themselves as members of these imagined communities. They find themselves invested in the international system in which their nation is territorialized and situated. Threats to the power of one sovereign are deemed as sacrilegious by the others. This system is preserved largely because of people's loyalty to their own state. Boundaries penetrate the society in numerous practices and discourses through which the territory exists and achieves institutionalized meanings. Hence, it is political, economic, cultural, governmental, and other practices and their associated meanings that make a territory and also territorialize everyday life. These elements all become part of daily life through spatial socialization, which is the process by which people are socialized as members of territorial groups. So, what does all this mean? Well, when we talk about the territorialization of everyday life, we're talking about situating our lives and the experience of our lives within this system, this international system. And that is done in part by popular culture. The production and consumption of popular culture enables a master narrative of a national myth to be disseminated throughout the nation or even throughout an international market. This narrative can contain details of not only who belongs to the nation, but also what belonging to the nation means and what the relationship is between those who do belong and those who do not. And so this is where Captain America comes to play a role. The conflict over the content of comic books is not a new thing. However, what is perhaps more interesting than this conflict is the relatively long periods of non-conflict over this content, as comic books contribute to this idea of territorialization. If we look at a comic like Captain America and we understand that it has been published with some gaps since 1940, and that the character is very clearly a symbol of the United States, it is unusual that there has been so little critical attention paid to the political content of this comic book. This is an example of the very ordinariness of popular culture that makes it so useful for the construction of national identity. And this is often referred to as banal nationalism. Nationalism that is in effect something that we don't even consciously notice. A good example of this is also flags. The flags melt into the background as our particular world is experienced as the world. The routine absent-mindedness involved in not noticing flags or other symbols of nationhood has its reflection in academic theory, and that is banal nationalism. Captain America is also an example of how popular culture can help to establish a link that connects millions of individuals into a single collective identity, that of the ideal American. Captain America is an anthropomorphized version of the American identity, essentially taking all Americans and scaling them down into one single individual, literally embodying the idealized American nation. Captain America provides a role model through which young readers can imagine themselves as an explicitly American hero. The role of superheroes is to preserve the status quo, so that anyone who fully internalizes the values of Captain America will also commit themselves to the preservation of the American nation in its current form. Captain America is a territorial symbol, much like the flag or the bald eagle, except he goes beyond that as well. Territorial symbols simply symbolize and reproduce the nation and its territory, whereas Captain America is what we might call a rescaling icon. A rescaling icon performs nationalist functions in the same way that a flag or the bald eagle does, but they also serve to bridge the gap in scale between the nation and the individual. Rescaling icons are people or fictional characters who are seen as representing the best qualities of the nation, and thereby teaching the values and behavior of that nation, or what's expected of that nation, to its citizens. And that is the role that Captain America plays. And there are numerous examples that we've looked at over the course of these lectures for how Captain America represents both what is already good and great about this nation and what should be good and great about this nation.